Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend, Denis. He's prepared to ignite.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas.
Hey, welcome to the show, Leadership is Changing. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Leaders everywhere confront similar obstacles because people are people, but everywhere you go, leaders are overwhelmed, disrupted, and under pressure. They run from email to email, meeting to meeting. Many leaders are not changing quick enough, which means they run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. The purpose of the show is taking our listeners' leadership to another level by finding their balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. I believe we don't have enough effective leaders in the world today, and if we can get the leaders to step up and lead change, then they can inspire real change. Hey listeners, it's now time to adapt in our fast-moving world.
Hey there listeners, welcome to the Ask Denis Freestyle episode. Great to be here with you today. Today I'm going to talk to you about the second half. So what I'm going to call it is halftime, change sides. As we're now approaching to the end of the month, it's the end of the 6th month of the year. In other words, the first half of the year is finished. And that's, the halftime change size is really what we tend to say when we're normally speaking about sporting games and so forth. At a halftime, the teams may remain on the field or the teams may go off into the changing rooms. And halftime really means is that this is when we take a break and we then restart the game for the second half of the actual match. Now, when they go into the changing rooms, this is a time really for the teams to take time to rest. This is where they can recharge their batteries, catch their breath. They have some food and some water to replenish their actual bodies and to help their muscles and get them ready for that second half. It's also time to reflect. This is where they can actually take time out to discuss the first half, how it went and what was happening and what went well and maybe what they could be doing better going forward. It's also time to reset. In other words, reset the mindset. They might be thinking certain things, so can they be a little bit more of a growth mindset and thinking about things that they need to do. It also can be time for them to get ready to go. In other words, pull together their game plan, and then, of course, it's time for them to reignite. It's time for them to come back out and have an even stronger half. But you know what? A lot can happen on the field or, in that break or also in the change room, depending on what they're doing. A lot can happen and it can actually set up what's really going to be the second half. It can actually really make or break a team. It can actually make or break an individual. So it really depends what's been discussed in that actual changing room, how it's handled, how it's discussed, what things are being said and how it's being said. And what is being said to the team to actually help them realize their potential. In other words, where they can go. And as I said before, it can really make or break a team. As a leader, you have a responsibility to help the players or the team members and yourself see a bigger picture. See, for a lot of us, we can sit in the stands and be in the stand or on the side of the field. We can actually be in our helicopter and we can actually see what's working, what's not. For a lot of the players and a lot of your team members, they're in the midst of things every single day. They're doing things whereby they are looking at what they need to do and they're just getting on with it. Sometimes we as the coach, as the leader of the team and so forth, need to be on the sideline or need to be in the stand where we can see a helicopter view, a bigger picture. And that enables us to actually see what's working and what's not. Then we can actually give the team the feedback to help them move on. And if you have that helicopter view, it's a beautiful thing. Because you see, when we actually are in the helicopter, we can see things from a totally different perspective. And if you can help people see things from a different perspective, just imagine what they might be able to achieve. For a lot of people, including yourself maybe, that you're actually getting hung up on certain things. It's more about what we can do to actually acknowledge or understand it, acknowledge it, and then do something about it. See, it's not good enough to do nothing about it. If we can acknowledge it, understand it, acknowledge it, then we must do something about it, to fix it, to change it, to maybe even do what we're doing, but take it to another level. Because it's not all about what we can fix, it's also about what we can do better than what we already are doing today, even though it might be going still well. And so for the thing here that I wanted to talk to you about today is it's really important as we end the first half of this year, is what are you doing to set yourself up for the next half? And the thing is, I've got to say to you that if it's still the last day of the year for you, but it's probably not going to be because by the time this airs, it's going to be into the second half, then, do that reflection time. Do take time out to rest, take a breath, even take time out to think about things more, where you can reflect on things, but it's also about resting, reflecting, resetting, and reigniting your second half, your year again. Because you see, it's almost like we've got a second chance. We've done the first half, the new year, we kicked off the new year, and now we're into the second half, and now we can kick off again and reignite. I think it's really important for us to take time to look at each of these different areas that I've talked about. The reset, the reflect, the rest, the reflect, the reset, and the reignite. Very important we do that. Now listeners, you don't need to do this if you don't want to. It depends on how big your goal is. It depends on how big your why is and what you're really wanting to achieve and what are you wanting to do. I know that as I take time out to reflect on the first half, there are things that I think about that, wow, and I actually do take time out to acknowledge the things that we actually achieved and to think about what we're wanting to do next. But sometimes something happens. Something along the lines of, something may also pop into my head, or there might be something else that you may think of differently that you may not have thought about before. And so sometimes for a lot of us, these new things come into mind, they actually help us. So what can you do to do that to help you be successful in what you're wanting to do? See, my question to you would be, what will your second half look like? Is it going to be what it was like in the first half, or is it going to be different? What do you want it to look like? Think about that. Write it down. Even mind map, brainstorm, draw pictures, words, numbers, whatever it is that's going to help you get a clear picture on what that second half will look like. You see, even the phone you've got right now, if you're listening to this on a phone, or whether you're listening to it on a computer or something, that device didn't just appear. That device was an idea or a concept in someone's mind first. Then they produced the physical form. For you to go ahead and do what you're wanting to do, it's about you thinking about the future, thinking about what you want it to look like in your mind first, and then going and putting it into a physical form. The question I've got for you again is, what will you now do going forward? What are you going to go ahead and do? And how will you make it? Well, how will you make it an awesome second half of the year? By the way, I've got to say to you that remember to celebrate the first half. I've been working in many workshops over the last period of time and of lately, and what I've seen of late is that a lot of leaders are actually admitting that they don't take time out to celebrate success, or if they do, the comment they make is, we don't do it enough. And so I'm going to encourage you to say to you, hey, think about how you might want to celebrate the first half of the year. Celebrate its wins, celebrate the success, celebrate the learnings. And it doesn't have to be very expensive stuff for you to do. It could be something small, whatever it is. But please make sure you do take time out to celebrate. And if you do take time out to celebrate, let's say you're going to go out for dinner. Then when you're actually going to have dinner, as you're starting the dinner, just say the words. Hey, what an awesome first half, or what an awesome way that we've actually achieved this thing, and actually acknowledge it and say it. Because when you do that, psychologically, it's going to help us all, help you in particular, go and set the next goals or the second half up and go out and do it. For a lot of us, what actually happens is that we're always on. We're off to the next thing. We're just driving and we're not taking enough time out to celebrate those successes and learnings, etc. So in closing, team, what I want to say to you is that remember to take time out now. It is half time. It is time for you to change sides and move to the second half of the year. Take time out to rest, reflect, reset, reignite, and celebrate the first half of the year. Have fun.
Hey, listeners, what we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Change is incredibly scary, especially with the unknown and unfamiliar territory. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing. Look out for the episodes as they're being released. Download them, have a listen, put a review and a rating. Feel free to share them with your friends, your family, and your network. If there's any feedback you'd like to give me about the show, or if there's a question you have for the Ask Denis Freestyle episode, then send me an email, dennis@leadingchangepartners.com. Hey, listeners, it's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.